So I am having a little bit of a crisis, like an existential crisis, I guess you could call it. I just found out this week that there are weirdos in the world who pronounce pen and pen differently. Pen. I can't. That feels so weird coming out of my mouth. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to check out another video. So, I have missed you guys. I have missed filming. Moving is just very chaotic. I am still in my house, but we are moving on the first week of April, or during the first week of April. So, that'll be really exciting. So, probably not until the end of April will things go back to like more of a normal schedule. I do have content that I have filmed. I just haven't had like a chance to upload it. And now I'm like in my own head. I'm like, oh, it's been too long. Like you can't edit and upload that. Like I have a video that is my February empties that I never put up. But that's not what you're here for. So we are here today to do the first update to the Fantasy Self Eyeshadow Palette Challenge. You guys know I'm doing this with the lovely Laura, who is here on YouTube. I will leave her link down below in the cards, as well as her Instagram if I remember to do that. And I'll also leave her playlist for her own Fantasy Self Palette Challenge. But you guys know how much I love her. I love that we're always on like the same wavelength, and I really think that we do a good job of like challenging each other to like use up our makeup. This has just been a fun project. So like I said, if you missed the introduction video, which went back up all the way in December of 2020, we're only updating you this every like 3 months. That's where we really go over the rules to this. But essentially all it is that we have each selected 15 eyeshadows that intimidate us in some way. So it could be the color or the formulation or, you know, just anything like that. And the goal is to hit pan on them. Once we hit pan on 2 eyeshadows, our partner, so like Laura for me, would pick a replacement eyeshadow, and then I pick the other one. And the one that I pick could be a shade that I actually really like. So hopefully by the time we are done with this, you have a palette that is more shades that you like than shades you dislike. Or, you know, the other goal is to figure out how to use these and make these work and see if you actually can get unintimidated, can get comfortable. Unintimidated is not a word. So without any further rambling, I want to show you guys a clip of what this palette looked like at the beginning of the challenge. All right, I did scoot over a little bit because hopefully I could put up some pictures here so that you could look at it on the screen. But I am going to show you now what the palette is looking like as we sit here on March 27th. Here we go. Look at that. How many pans do you count? All right. And hopefully by doing it in this weird way, you can see that there are some nice dips. So with there being 15 shadows in here, it would take far too long for me to ramble off like I use this shade X amount of times and this one blah blah blah. So all of that information will be listed in the description box. We are going to go over the highlights, however, and I can tell you I have used every shade in my Fantasy Self palette at least once over the 3-month period, so I'm pretty proud of that. So let's first talk about the 3 eyeshadows that I do have pan on. The first one that I hit was actually this Blue Note shade, which is just a matte blue from Dandelions, which is an Etsy indie brand. I only had to use this shadow 8 times before I hit pan on it. Such a low number. What I have found is that these darker Dandelion matte shades are very powdery, and then when you put them on, so like this blue shade, how I was liking to use it was like an outer V shade. You put it on and then you blend out the edges. A lot of the pigmentation would fade away. So it was a back and forth battle of like build it up, blend it out kind of thing. So I think that's why I was able to hit it in so few uses. The next shadow that I hit pan on happened in February, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. This is the Poet Matte shade from the Tati Beauty Textured Neutrals Volume 1 palette. I used this shade a whopping 23 times in order to hit pan on it. It is a very tightly pressed matte shade. Now, if I pull it out of this palette, I think you can kind of tell This pan is not all that thick, really. It's a standard 26 millimeter size pan, but it's just a very thin one. So there's still a good bit of like product in here, I would say. I don't feel like you're being like cheated necessarily, but it amazed me to think about how shallow this pan is and that it's that hard pressed, so it still took like 23 uses. I was so gung-ho on hitting pan in that shade though, that I kind of like wore myself out of it. Like I started to really enjoy that like berry tone, especially wearing it in my outer V. But now I'm like, ugh, don't give me those. Like I just want like standard purples or like chocolate brown kind of purple shades. And so I haven't really been playing with any berry type shades. So hopefully as soon as I like quit having to look at this every day, I'll get like more, like go back into wanting to play with those berry shades. All right, I do have to apologize. I'm sitting on my ground floor. This is just like a little side note. There's a playground right outside my house, and like the kids can see me and they keep looking in here, and I just want to stick my tongue at them and be like, move it along, little weirdos, okay? It's just an old lady filming YouTube content, okay? But that's why I keep looking out that way. Anyway, let's talk about the last pan of eyeshadow that we hit. I hit it today while doing my makeup, so was not expecting that, but this is a matte black shade from Dandelions. It is the shade Livid, and I used it 14 times in order to hit pan. Again, it's much the same as Blue Note. It fades away when you go to blend it out. So even though it is like a lot of it, I just stuck my finger in it to give you guys like a swatch to show you it is a black shade. Can you see that it like crumbled out? So I'm gonna clean this up. We're gonna take a brief intermission. Okay. All right, well, that's a great way, I guess, to segue into my next comment, which is, I don't know if I want to keep my Dandelion matte eyeshadows because they are so powdery. They crumble just like you saw. Super frustrating, makes a huge mess, and it gets everywhere. So that's like the third shadow from them that has crumbled on me. Now, I did repress one of them, and it is a lot firmer, but it takes a lot you have to like really dig your brush in there to pick up any product and like put it on. It doesn't have hard pan. It just really, me repressing it with alcohol greatly changed the formula. So I don't know what else to do. If you have any tips, let me know. Now, I do still really love their like metallic and shimmer eyeshadow formula, but the mattes, the more that I have used them and had this happen, the more I'm just like, no, it's not it. So anyway, I think I told you guys how many times I used it. It was like 14 times, have hit pan on it. So since I hit pan on that shade this morning, I'll probably take it out of the palette so that it doesn't crumble and make a mess again. But technically it's not getting replaced because I haven't hit pan on that second shadow to replace it. So the two that will be rolling out are Blue Note and the Poet Matte shade. Some other highlights that I want to talk about within this palette, because a lot of these shades were shades where I had used them maybe 1 or 2 times and was like, oh, it's not for me. So I put in this shade, which is Oracle. This is a shade from a little Etsy brand called Beauty Bar Baby, and it is the shade Oracle. Hopefully you guys can see on camera. It's like a pink eyeshadow, but it's like a duochrome, and it has a very intense green flip. When I bought this, I really wanted more of that pink to show through, not so much the green, and more of the green shows through. This does not work as like a standard like lid shade, but it's amazing as a topper. So I do have it on today. I don't know how well you can tell how far I am away from the camera, but I'm happy that I have found out a way to love this and actually enjoy it and have it, continue to live in my collection. So like, let's talk about today's eye look. I guess that would be a thing because all the shades that I'm wearing come from this palette. So in my crease, what I did was I first laid down Miracle Romance, which is like a light lilac purple. Then I actually mixed it with Tribe, which is from the Natasha Denona Safari palette. So Tribe for me, it's a red shade, which we all know Haley doesn't do. But it's also like an orangey red shade, and I just don't like how those play with like my complexion and my hair color. However, mixing the two of these together, I really like the effect that it has on my eyes. It really takes out that oranginess to Tribe and makes it just much more of like a darker red shade. So that'll be something that I will try to do, like again, mix those two and maybe use different like lid shades. I do have Livid in my outer V, and then like I said, I have Memory Metallic on my lids topped off with Oracle. You kind of lose the fact that Memory Metallic is on my lids because Oracle just kind of overtakes it. Normally it doesn't have that effect. Normally it's just, it kind of transforms the color a little bit and it does take on like a shifty greenness, but with this particular shade, for whatever reason, it totally just like ate it all up. So there's today's eye look. Yeah. Overall, I'm still really enjoying this challenge. I'm having a lot of fun. The only things that I'm regretting is that I did put 2 eyeshadows from the Natasha Denona Safari palette in here. And if I'm not mistaken, there's like 2 grams of product in just one of those pans. So those gonna be here for the long haul. But within the next 3-month period, I honestly think that if I could get back into wearing makeup much more routinely, because right now, just with everything going on, like it's not a thing. But if I can get back into that, I really think Miracle Romance, Oracle, and possibly one of these shimmer shades from MBA Cosmetics. This is Clary Sage and this is Sweet Tea. One of those, all 3 of those could hopefully be rolling out. So I want to go over 2 eye looks that I have with you guys solely using my Fantasy Self palette, and then I'll show you the 2 new shades that are coming in to replace the 2 that I hit pan on first. So the first eye look that you are seeing, I do have the Miracle Romance shade, which again is from the ColourPop Sailor Moon Pretty Guardian palette. That is in my crease area, built really far up and kind of intensely. Then on the outer V, I did lay down the Memory Metallic shade from the Tati Beauty palette. And then on like the inner half of the lid and the inner corner, I did put that Oracle shade down, not as a topper, just as a standalone shade. And I do like it in this eye look, but it takes so many layers to build it up if it is your standalone like lid shade. But overall, really did enjoy this eye look. And then the next one that I want to show you, I tried to be adventurous. I took the matte red Tribe shade from the Safari palette, put that into my crease area. Then in the outer V, I took Livid and put that down and just kind of like darkened it up, and then layered Tribe back over it, because again, once you start to blend out your edges, Livid turns from a black shade into a gray shade. But having it layered like that with Tribe just made Tribe much more like darker in the outer corner. And then on the, like for the lid shade, I used the yellow shimmer shade from this palette, which is Buttercup, which is a Dandelion shimmer shade. And I do enjoy that one. So yeah, those are my eye looks to share with you. So how should we do this? I have the 2 shades. So that's one thing I want to say. Technically, what was supposed to happen is I was supposed to pick a shade for myself and Laura was supposed to pick a shade for me since I hit the 2 pans. But I was having such a hard time deciding like what I wanted to put in. Like, did I want to put in another challenging shade for myself, or did I just want to like put in something that I really wanted? Like, I could not decide. So I actually just asked Laura to pick my 2 shades. So she picked 2 from my like challenge spreadsheet where she can see like what eyeshadows I'm intimidated by. So she did end up picking out the 2 of these. I guess I'll show them to you first. We'll talk about them. I'll swatch them and then I'll put them into the palette and we'll take a look at what the palette looks like now. So the 2 shades that she picked out are right here. This is Force Field, which is a Kaleido shade. This comes from their Futurism 5 Electro Turquoise palette. And then underneath that is a Luxie Beauty shade. It is the shade Omega. Let me swatch these out for you quickly. All right, so here they are swatched out. So this is obviously Force Field, which is a very light matte blue shade. And I know she has this in her palette too. And so it's kind of like We'll Be Panning Twins. I think that's why she picked it. And then Omega, if I recall correctly, she said that she didn't really know what that was, but it just had like an interesting name. And then after she told me to put that one in, she went and looked it up and she was like, Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so very dark. It is really dark, especially since we're coming into springtime, but it is super pretty. Hopefully it picks up on camera for you guys, but it is like a green base shade with a purple shift to it. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of that. Is it Throne? That shade from the Prism palette? Danny was panning that in one of her eyeshadow projects. I can't remember which one it was, but she was working on that recently, and that's like the vibes that it gives me. So there's the two new shades swatched out, like I said. So let me pop these into the palette and let's see if we need to like rearrange it and kind of like refresh it. All right, so I went ahead and popped them in here. So here is Omega and here is Force Field. I like where they're at because I think Force Field will go really nicely with Oracle. And then Omega up here, I'm interested to try with Rhino, which is from the Natasha Denona Safari palette. So yeah, I think I'm a little like, I wish I could have rolled out more than just two shades, but I'm still impressed with myself that I was able to roll out two shades. And I'm excited. I think even just switching out these two shades kind of gives it new life and like makes it exciting to pull this palette out again. So I'm really excited. Let me know down below what eyeshadow looks you would do with this. Because again, I don't mind like pulling in multiple palettes, but I do like to just dip into this palette because I feel like if I can just use this palette to create an eye look and it turns out to be something I really enjoy and could repeat, then I'm maximizing my usage on this palette. So, but yeah, I thank you guys so much for watching and putting up with me. Again, go check out the lovely Laura and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.